come up with a lot of dumb ideas and get inspired by the littlest of things. Sometimes I decide to execute those dumb ideas, sometimes I don't. Unfortunately for everyone, I did decide to make yet another dumb cake. By the way, if you didn't see my previous video where I made a bad undead cake, then I recommend you watch that first. So let me backtrack and talk about how this idea came to fruition. One day, I was googling undead, as one typically does, and scrolling through Google Images. I scrolled and scrolled, and my eyes caught sight of something that just stood out. What is this? Undead cake topper? And it says, "Happy birthday, Sophia." Imagine getting an undead cake. How do I order one of these cake toppers? Anyway, I used this Rei and Kaoru image and ordered a cake topper from a small business. I feel so bad for the poor people who received this image and were forced to make a cake topper for me. I'm so sorry, but I have a special cake to make. Well, I did. This cake was supposed to be for Rei and Kaoru's birthday, but I am bad at planning and video editing, so this project took way longer to make. But the world needs to see my bad ideas. No, they don't, but I keep telling myself that. So let's break down the plan. First, we gotta make a cake. I decided to make a small 6-inch round chocolate cake this time around. My previous idea for a cake was way too ambitious, so I had to keep it simple. I decided to follow this recipe since it has the correct measurements for me already laid out in the recipe itself. As we learned last time, I can't split recipes, I'm bad at math, so I need to use simpler recipes. Second, I thought, what if I decided to make my own frosting? I'm making a chocolate cake, so vanilla frosting is an obvious choice to pair with. I've never made my own frosting, so let's have a go at it. This is the recipe I decided to follow to help me make my homemade vanilla frosting. Third, I get to experiment with placing cake toppers on cakes. Hopefully this helps improve my cake making skills and they actually look good and edible. Alright, time to get baking. The cake recipe is overall very simple. The ingredients I used were cake flour, cocoa powder, baking soda, salt, vegetable oil, granulated sugar, egg, vanilla extract, and buttermilk. The first step is to get a bowl to mix all of our dry ingredients together, which will be flour, cocoa powder, baking soda, and salt. In the second bowl, we mix together the vegetable oil, sugar, egg, vanilla extract, and buttermilk, which are our wet ingredients. Next, you combine the wet ingredients with the dry ingredients into one single bowl. Mix until everything is well incorporated to create your cake batter. Pour the cake batter into your cake pan, throw that bad boy in the oven, and bake for about 28 minutes. And ta-da! We have our cake, so now it's time to make our homemade vanilla frosting. This is my first time making frosting, so I was very nervous, but I really want to get better at baking, so I had to give it a try. This vanilla frosting recipe calls for sugar, flour, milk, vanilla extract, salt, and butter. Step 1 of making the frosting requires us to make something called a thickening roux, which is some sort of thickening base to make the frosting more of a solid and have a so-called form to it. Basically, we don't want to use something too liquidy as our frosting, as that would run all over the cake. Now, per my last video, it is evident I jump into things without giving it much thought. Last time, I didn't research how to make a chiffon cake. This time, I didn't research anything about roux and confidently went to making it. My first attempt at roux did not work at all. No surprises there. I used a pan that was not well insulated, so the roux ended up burning and sticking to the bottom of my pan. I threw that to the trash and decided to try again, and we surprisingly made thickening roux this time. Good pans are great to have in the kitchen, who would have thought? In the recipe, it clearly states I need to let the roux cool completely prior to using it to make the frosting. As you can probably tell now, I have a track record of not researching and thinking things through, so I put the roux in the fridge for like 30 minutes to an hour thinking that was enough time for it to cool. And spoiler alert, it wasn't. The recipe clearly states to let it cool overnight, but I still kept going on and worked towards making my frosting. But I made my second mistake of the night. I wasn't using a hand mixer to whisk, I was using my hands. If you saw my last video, I do not own the stand mixer and use my hands to make and mix everything. So I was foolishly trying to mimic a stand mixer and using my hands to beat my butter until it was smooth enough to use for frosting. In case you were wondering if it was possible for a human to mimic the strength and consistency of a stand mixer, it is not, so I had slightly melted, slightly beat, lumpy butter. By the way, I know I'm gross and weird, but stand mixers are pricey and I didn't want to spend the money purchasing one just yet. Anyway, I tried to whip my non-cool thickening roux into my butter and added some vanilla and salt for flavor. You are supposed to whip everything together until you get these things called stiff peaks. Basically, you want the frosting to be thick enough and mix well enough to hold its shape so it isn't melty, and able to keep its form. My weak human hands obviously can't whip this all together to do that, so my vanilla frosting was a total failure. So, threw that stuff out. Now, to use a cake topper, you need frosting. The frosting is the thing that holds the cake topper in place, so I was stuck with chocolate cake and a cake topper. Luckily, I had an emergency store-bought chocolate frosting in the cupboard, so I had to switch to making a chocolate on chocolate cake. But this is fine. I was doing this for Rei and Kaoru, and I wasn't going to let my failure stop me from following my dreams. Although maybe I should have. Here we go. We have a chocolate frosted chocolate cake, and now we're gonna lay our beautiful image on top. This is my first time working with a cake topper, and luckily, the place I ordered this from included instructions that I actually decided to read. Basically, with these things, you gotta store them in room temperature, dimly lit environments prior to using them. Sometimes you are able to just peel the cake topper from the backing, but mine wasn't working, so I placed it in the freezer for about a minute. After this, the cake topper solidifies enough for me to peel it off of its backing. Now, you do need to be careful laying these things on the cakes because once it touches the frosting, it just kind of stays there. So I just eyeballed the center of the cake and laid the Rei and Kaoru cake topper on top. And it worked! I don't have much video of this part, but I tried to decorate the edges of the cake topper to make the cake prettier, but chocolate frosting looks, it doesn't look that pretty. Copy, I'm just bad at decorating cakes. But we did it! We made our Rei and Kaoru cake! The world didn't get to see it until 7 months later though. But it's not like people watch these videos anyway. Anyway, this cake went through a lot to be created. Some burning, some failures, some embarrassment, but I was happy with it. I sadly had to slice the Rei and Kaoru cake to eat it, but I had fun. What did I learn? I learned a lot from this cake and was able to make some cakes for my siblings' birthdays that actually looked decent this time around. And I learned I need a stand mixer. But we will see whenever that happens. But if you have made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I have lots more bad ideas I want to execute, so if you want to see me fail at those, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe because I do not plan to stop. Although maybe I should. I like doing these dumb little projects, and even if not a lot of people watch them, I still have fun making these, so yeah. That's all from my failures today, so I will see you next time. Bye bye!